Right now we're here with Michael from Shadow of Mordor, and the game looks amazing. I've watched a lot of videos, and do you want to talk about the Nemesis system? From what I understand, it basically gives everyone kind of a unique enemy experience with each playthrough. Is that correct?
Yeah, so, we wanted to, especially with the power of next gen and especially with Middle-earth, is let players create their own stories. We didn't want the enemies that you fight to be kind of, I guess, faceless grunts. So we wanted to make it so any enemy that you fight and encounter is going to remember those fights. If he survives, he can level up, he'll remember you. So you're really, building up these stories that can ultimately end up with you having your own personal arch enemy, your own villain, your own boss fight. So it's kind of like a mission creator of making your own boss fights, making your own showdowns, but built right into the story of the game and into the living world.
Perfect. Now, I imagine there's going to be countless orcs. Are there going to be several enemy types, or is it just going to be fighting the same orcs over and over and over again?
So I think there's two things to that. One is because of the Nemesis system within our orcs, there's a huge amount of variety that we have in terms of their abilities, their classes, their skills, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, their hatreds. So, the way we've really tried to approach is definitely not to think, okay, just orcs, but basically treating orcs as exaggerated versions of what humans would be. So it actually opens up the possibilities for variety even more than we would have if you had human enemies. But then on top of that, we also have some of our other key villains from our story. It's these guys, the Black Captains. They're Sauron's sort of key servants responsible for his return. So we've got big sort of what we'd call tentpole boss fights against them. We have various monsters and creatures and beasts and other missions. So yeah, there's a lot of variety in there as well. And then the fun thing is, because of the power of the Wraith, your ability to not only fight these guys, but to grab them, to get information from them, to dominate them, bend them to your will, make them fight each other, that opens up the possibilities even more.
Right. Now let's talk about the Wraith for a second. Now, I understand that you were your character was Talion, right? Is that his name? Okay, and he was a ranger, and then he gets killed, and then do we get to find out what the motivation is behind the Wraith and resurrecting this ranger? Like, does this Wraith have an agenda of its own?
Absolutely, and that's what we're really excited about at Comic-Con. That's our panel today. We actually are revealing the identity of the Wraith, which isn't going to reveal where our story ultimately goes, but the Wraith, in fact, is someone who's very, very central to the sort of lore of Middle-earth. It's Celebrimbor, who was an elf who was the greatest smith of the Second Age, and more than that, he was the elf that worked together with Sauron to forge the Rings of Power. So this is someone who has a really strong relationship to Sauron, is a genuine rival in power to Sauron, who forged the Rings of Power, and now with Sauron's return, has a very strong incentive to use that power and use what he's learned to come back and challenge the Dark Lord.
Perfect. Now, the game uses kind of that free-flow combat system that we kind of first really got exposed with Arkham Asylum. Yep. Now, was it challenging trying to find a new, fresh way to still use the same mechanics but ultimately expand on it?
I think what's we're really excited about with Shadow of Mordor in the combat is, within combat, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. So you've got your melee combat, which is your free flow. You've also got your stealth. We've also got our ranged combat, so with the bow, and then you've got your wraith powers, the ability to bend your enemies to your will, turn them against each other. And I think what's worked out really well is how organic and dynamic that is. How you can come into combat from stealth, break out of combat, use your ranged abilities and shadow strike to get out. So the whole sort of living world is very, very dynamic. So every single fight can bring up surprises and kind of twists.
Great. Well, you know what? Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to it. It comes out when? October 7th? Is that correct?
No, September 30.
What? Is that new?
That's news. That's just announced today. So we're really happy about that too.
I like it. Yeah. That's a Geek Legacy exclusive right there.
Talion was a ranger that was on the Black Gate, and obviously the Black Gate has been protecting us for 2,000 years. And he's a ranger, but there's something that to me is really interesting about him, in that I think he's a family man. And we see in the very beginning of his story that his family gets brutally murdered. And that kind of sets him on a course of events because he dies as well. But then he comes back. So at its base root, it's a story of revenge, but I think more than anything, this is a story about identity. It's about who is this guy, and also his companion that goes along with him, this wraith. Who is the wraith? So it's definitely a battle of revenge, but it's also something about identity.
I like it. Now you have the voice in a million games these days. That's quite a resume. Is there any crazy rituals that you do to get prepared for these types of things? Like, do you have to, whatever, do like you have to have pixie sticks, or you gotta just like go to drink like 13 Red Bulls and go to town, or what's your ritual?
It would clearly kill you. No, man. You just first of all, I've been incredibly fortunate, and that train could pull into the stop any moment. You enjoy the ride as long as you can, but for me, it's understanding that character more than anything. Is finding that one little thing that unlocks that character for you. And there was the one thing for me, for Talion, and which is a secret, and it's once you understand who that character is, because you got to move around. You're doing different things at different times, but you always have to be able to come in and be fit right into these boots of these characters. So understanding that grounding element, which helps you ground yourself into performances, which is the reason why we're doing these. It's not just to throw money after stuff. It's that the gameplay and the narrative have become this wonderfully inextricably tied element to the experience, and that's why games are so resonant with people. And we want those just as we want the gameplay to be as immersive and emergent as possible, we want those narrative elements too to be equally as immersive and emergent. We want there to be choices to be given. And this is one of the first games I've seen in a while that really allows the player to not just branch narratively, but also branch gameplay-wise. And that, to me, as a gamer, pulls me right into that world.
So that's got to be a lot more work involved too, right? Because there's so many choices involved and so many different routes that players can take. The recording process takes a lot longer then, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely spend a lot of time working through these scenes. And obviously you have a story to tell, so you eventually want to lead the player on a specific path. But how you get to those specific narrative points is completely up to the player, which is great. And the world responds to that too, which is one thing that I love. That Nemesis system is insane. I mean, whether you do kill or do not kill this specific worker, or he kills you perhaps, the world adapts to your gameplay. So truly, you could play this over and over again and have a different experience literally every time. But then at the same time, there are specific things that we want to move a story forward with. Where there's a story that we're trying to tell, and how we get you to those points, or what happens when you get to those points, is kind of up to you. But the moments are very real, and it's also, you don't want to just blow stuff up as a cinematic because you can. If there's something that's cool that happens in the game, we want the player to be doing that, and then come back to these moments and have all those moments have weight with these performances and with the story.
Now, back to you doing a million voices. Do you have friends that are just like, oh my God, call my voicemail or do my voicemail as like the Joker or anything like that? Does that happen to you, or do you play jokes on like your friends or anything like that?
There's normally a lot of alcohol involved with that when that happens. Like, dude, do my voicemail. I'm going to do your voicemail as the Joker, but. So yeah, I mean, it's fun, and it's not missed on me that it's a pretty stupid job that we have. And fortunately, all of our friends, are in some way either involved in this or appreciate this side of the industry too. And so to them, I'm just Troy, which is what I love. But it's always really cool when someone goes, hey, what you did really means something to me, or I'm really a fan of that, because I'm a fan of something that someone else has done here. I'm geeking out as much as anybody that's here too. So,
well, yeah, no, voice acting is definitely a big part of the game, because if it's not done right, or it seems like they phoned it in, then unfortunately as a gamer you notice it right away, and it takes you out of the whole experience. So
that's why we don't want to combat that feeling. You just want to tell a good story, and I think if you approach it in that kind of honesty, then you'll obviously assuage that. But yeah, I completely agree with you. It's if I don't believe what's happening, then I'm either pressing A to skip, or or I'm pulled out of it. It may not even be something that I'm consciously aware of. It may just be something that I feel. But that's what we're trying to do is people spend $60 on a game to get 15, 20, 30 hours, whatever, for an experience. I want to get lost inside of a game in every element. I want to believe in it. I want to be completely just shut out and I want the world to go away. So we honor that. And as a gamer, I respect that.